Hi guys, so I've got an Etsy haul for you today and all the items are skull themed. I got one item from a Etsy store called BATSKULLZ with a Z at the end, and all the rest of the items are from a shop that's called MRSOLES. So the first item I got was from the shop BATSKULLZ, and it is simply a bat skull pendant, and it came really quickly. It only took 2 days from the day I purchased it to arrive at my house, and it was packaged really nicely and securely. And then inside the actual package I found this box, but it was all wrapped up in some really nice black tissue paper, and then inside was this box. So this is the box it came in. It has this really nice little bow at the top, and then it has BATSKULLZ, the actual name of the brand, there. And then it opens really nicely, and inside is the pendant itself. So inside here is all this kind of squishy, kind of cotton woolly padding, just to make sure the skull stays intact, as it is a real bat skull. And then the skull itself is safely secured to this string, and all of the metal used in this pendant is sterling silver. And I got one which has a little pentacle star hanging from the top of it. It kind of hangs in the kind of mid forehead as such of the bat. So this pendant is really nicely constructed, and it does seem quite fragile just because it is a real bat skull, but it's really detailed. I've left this skull in the box just to show you how beautiful the packaging is and how well it's packaged, because as you put it back down, the skull goes into the soft kind of cotton woolly area underneath, just to keep it completely safe. So it doesn't come on a chain. I think this is a really handy kind of feature, because a lot of the time I do get necklaces and I don't like the actual cord or chain that they're on, so this gives you a little bit more of an option. I'm thinking of putting this on either a nice sort of thin sterling silver chain or on a leather cord. So I believe that this skull is a fruit bat specimen, and it does have some really interesting details to it. Obviously each of the skulls will look slightly different because they are all real, and the actual shop owner has made sure that the skull has been properly cleaned and it's treated for protection as well, so it should be perfect just to kind of wear, and you don't need to do anything else to this product. It does say in the shop that they take into mind the fact that they want to make it robust, so it does say that it can handle everyday wear, but for me I feel like this is more of a kind of unique piece that I would team with a specific outfit. So this skull pendant, including the postage, only cost me $24.99, which is great for the fact that normally when you're buying a skull or any kind of sort of taxidermy pieces, they're normally quite expensive to start off with, and you are getting a full product with shipping included. So my favourite part about this piece is that you can actually see the teeth of the bat in the skull. I have been looking for something like this for ages, and this just ticked all of my boxes. I'm really pleased with this product. It's definitely worth the money, and they do loads of different designs. You can get them with things like butterflies and different little charms hanging off them, and then you can get the skulls actually modified in specific ways. So it's definitely worth checking out the store, even if you're not really into pentacles or pentagrams. There may be a charm which kind of suits your style more. I'll leave all the information and everything you need to know down in the description below, so you can check out this shop on Etsy. The seller himself is really kind, really understanding, and he'll definitely answer any questions that you have. I sent him a message and he probably replied within an hour, so it's definitely very quick correspondence there as well. So the next items which I got are all from the same Etsy shop, and the shop is called MRSOLES. I will again link all the information, all the links you need down below in the description. And I got this box through this morning, and it was so exciting to open it. So this is the box that it came in, and everything was actually in this box, which really surprised me because it seemed like it wouldn't all fit in here, but it was all really nicely packed. So inside there was kind of layers of bubble wrap just to make sure everything was safe. This shop is situated in Canada, so obviously it's quite a long journey from Canada to England where I am, and I all got it in perfect condition. There was no breaks, there was nothing. I do find sometimes when buying things from afar they do get knocked around in the post because our postmen don't really seem to care too much about packages. So I was kind of half expecting to get a few of them damaged, but they were all in perfect condition because they were so well wrapped in bubble wrap. And then each of the items came in little plastic bags. I have taken them out of the bags just to show you. So the first item which I bought was this resin cast of a domestic cat skull. I was looking at a lot of real animal skulls. I found a lot of them you need to do a lot of treatment yourself, and they were quite expensive, whereas these were really reasonably priced. And I found that getting a resin cast was a lot cheaper, but also it still came with all the same kind of details which I was really looking for. So the price of this skull was absolutely unbelievable. It cost me £16.68, but in dollars that was $23. To look at these, you wouldn't even know that they weren't sort of original skulls, and I'm using them more for a kind of decorative purpose. On the actual shop description, it does say that this is a life-size casting of a domestic cat skull. And I love the fact that his little kind of front fangs are different lengths, because it does give this kind of sense of realism to it. I do find with some kind of casts and replicas that people make, they do make them slightly too perfect, but I do love how this skull has so many tiny little kind of natural imperfections to it. And this skull's been made in a very realistic colour, and then this kind of black coating has been added to it just to show up all the really fine details within the skull. So the seller really kindly sent me another little skull, and I do believe that this is a kitten skull, and he does also sell these on his Etsy shop. And these casts are created from life-size actual kitten skulls, and this kitten skull is an absolutely amazing price. It's only £10.90. I did find with this shop that the shipping was quite expensive for me, just because I was shipping kind of halfway across the world, but when you buy quite a few items it does become very reasonable, and I did buy quite a few. I felt like there's so much variation within the shop that you can find quite a few things that you want to make the shipping definitely worth it. There is so much detail in this kitten skull. Even though it's a lot smaller, I'd say that the level of detail is just as high. I do love how the little nose hole of the skull looks as if it's a tiny little heart. As you can see, there are some tiny little teeth there in the cast. These skulls do seem to be quite delicate. I feel like because of the type of material they're made out of, they probably are slightly more hard wearing than a normal skull would be. I do feel like these skulls do kind of symbolize something. I really sadly did lose my really old cat a couple of days ago, and I have just got a new tiny little kitten, so I feel like this kind of almost gives them a bond together. The big one representing my good old friend that I've just lost, and the kitten skull, my new friend who I've just gained. So the next 4 items I got were all necklaces, and I am wearing one now. This necklace was the reason which I found Mr. Soul's shop. I've been looking for absolutely ages for a necklace which is of a crow skull. I did have a little silver one which I bought off of eBay, but it kind of turned a really weird colour when it got wet and things. So I just kind of wanted a more lifelike one, and I've been looking around for ages and I couldn't find any real ones. I found loads of different casts and resin ones, but none of them with that higher detail, and then I came across this one and I completely fell in love. I was also being really picky because I wanted one that was on a cord. I did see quite a few that were on sterling silver chains, and then a little metal plate was attached to the back with a loop so that it could go through the chain, but I wanted something that looked a little bit more raw and a little bit like I'd actually just found the skull and shoved a cord through it and put it around my neck. I did find a few on Etsy, but none of them were kind of perfect enough for me to want to pay the money for them. And then when I came across this one, which is everything I was looking for, and it only cost £15.96, I definitely knew I was going to have to buy it. So again, just like the cat skulls, this is a life-size casting of a crow skull. And it does come with a hole through the top of the skull, and it is put onto this leather cord. It's really nice, good quality cord, which does have a knot at the end. As you can see, I have just knotted mine a second time just to make it slightly shorter, because I wanted it to hang slightly further up my chest, but it's super easy to alter just to fit how you want it. I do also believe that you could probably take this cord out if you didn't like it and put a different cord of a longer length or a shorter length, or even possibly a really thin silver one like this one through the hole. And just the same as the cat skulls, it is a very realistic colour, and then the black has been added to kind of show all the different details. And I just love the shape of the crow skull. Underneath is hollow where the kind of bone of the beak is. I think that this is a really nice statement piece. Again, I don't think this would be the kind of piece I'd wear every day, but definitely I feel like this could go with quite a few different outfits, even if it's just kind of like a t-shirt, or it could go with some kind of more formal dresses. So as soon as I had found this crow pendant, I ended up going through his Etsy store and finding loads of other kind of bird skulls that I really liked. I did end up getting one that is visually quite similar to how the crow skull looks, and that is this Kingfisher skull. And the Kingfisher skull was slightly cheaper. It was £14.50. I don't know if it's because they're probably in slightly lower demand than the crow skulls are, but I just thought it looked really pretty, and although it does look quite similar, it does have a very different look to it when you're wearing it. So if you compare these two skulls, the Kingfisher one is slightly more elongated and it's also slightly thinner. It is kind of flatter as well. It's definitely very kind of different look to it once you kind of compare them. So the Kingfisher has this really kind of elegant beak, and it does seem quite thin, but the material doesn't feel like it's going to break or snap or anything. I don't know if this would survive being crushed about too much, but I feel like for everyday use this would definitely be absolutely fine. And again, just like the cat skulls, it does have all these slight imperfections to it, which I think really give it a very realistic look. I think the main kind of aesthetic difference between the Kingfisher skull and the crow skull is that the actual eye sockets are very thin and they do kind of taper, almost have this kind of brittle look, but again, it does just give it that more realistic look. I feel like you could also team this necklace and this necklace together with an outfit, so I definitely don't think that these are the kind of pendants where you can only kind of wear one at a time. I feel like they do work really nicely together. Again, it is on this leather cord, and as you can see, the cords that are put on there are really long, so I did just tie this one up just to make it higher, but you can make it a lot shorter. So when putting this necklace on without altering the cord, it does come just to the bottom of my chest. So that kind of gives you some kind of indicator as to how long the cord it comes on and how much room you've got to actually edit and alter this cord. After putting both the crow and the Kingfisher necklaces in my basket, I then decided I wanted another necklace which was the same kind of style, but the skull itself looked completely different visually. So there was a few different ones like hawks and quails, but I ended up going for an owl skull because I think that it just has a completely different look to it. It's more emphasis on the eye sockets and the beak. And as you can see, this skull is quite a lot smaller, so it would look perfect teamed up with one of the larger bird skulls. And this skull cost me £15.90 as well, or $22. I absolutely adore the shape of this skull. I love how large the eye sockets are, and also kind of the detail within the beak. Although it's very small, there's a lot of different textures and also little holes in the beak, and it does also kind of curve round in a point. And just like all the other skulls, again, it is a life-size casting of an owl skull, and it is made out of this resin. And I did want to show you because although you can't see on any of the other skulls, you can see on this one there are slight irregularities in the actual mold itself. You can see how it's kind of got a rubbing here, and also there's a tiny little kind of bubble in it that's sort of incaved. Now, I completely don't mind this at all. I think it just adds to how real this skull looks like, if anything, because it does give it more features and shows a little bit more irregularities with it. But it is something to consider that you may get sort of slight imperfections with the actual cast. Saying that, so much detail and care has been put into making these skulls, and every kind of angle of it has so much detail and nothing has been left. And again, this kind of black substance that they've put on it does show off all the lovely little details that you can find in these natural skulls. This skull does come on a slightly shorter leather cord. I'm not sure if maybe the length of these cords are just random, but I quite like the fact that it's on a shorter cord. I feel that it goes with the actual size of the pendant itself because the pendant is slightly smaller. And then the last thing I got from this shop was kindly sent as a gift, and it is another skull pendant, and this one's slightly different from all the other ones I've shown you today. So I've had a look through his shop, and I do believe that this is called a cold cast marble hawk skull, and it's exactly the same in the fact that it has the hole through the top of the skull and it's on a leather necklace, but the actual appearance of the skull is completely different. So on the Etsy shop Mr. Souls, there's lots of different types of skulls, and whereas I have generally been getting the more kind of realistic ones, this one I feel doesn't look so realistic, but it definitely has a very sort of striking appearance to it. I do know that he does do kind of different things like glow in the dark skulls and darker skulls, and this one is called a cold cast marble skull. So I believe that this is a hawk just because of the actual shape of the beak itself. It is very sharp and hooked, and also the shape of the eye socket. So again, just like all the other skulls, it is a life-size cast, but it's called a marble cast, and it does say in the description that they are cold to touch on a cool day, so that's probably where you kind of get the name marble from, and also the fact that it is this kind of lighter white colour compared to the slightly more realistic looking skull. I've been putting this skull in and out my basket the whole time that I was shopping on his website. I did actually have to end up taking it out the basket just because I ended up racking up quite a large sum at the end. But I feel like this is more of like a formal occasion skull, which sounds really odd, but I feel like these ones which are a bit more raw, you probably can't wear them to too many kind of formal events, but I feel like because this one looks slightly less realistic, it probably would be slightly more acceptable. I'm not sure whether or not with my occupation I can wear these skulls to work, just because I feel like they may scare the children slightly, but I feel like because this one definitely looks slightly less real, be suitable and probably a high enough professional level to wear it around children. And this hawk skull would have cost me £25.50. So those are all the bits which I have to show you from the Etsy store Mr. Souls, but he does do such a really high variety of things. I have just only shown you sort of cat skulls and necklaces. He does also do some really lovely looking books and some really interesting masks, and as I said, it is definitely worth checking out because there is such a wide range of skulls, and not only that, different styles of the skulls. I do think that because these are made of resin, they are slightly stronger, whereas the one I got from BATSKULLZ, although it has been treated and made slightly stronger, I will still feel just a tad more cautious when I'm wearing it, just to make sure I don't bang it against anything. But as you can see, the size difference between these skulls is completely different, and I'd wear these from completely different occasions. As for the shops themselves, they're both laid out really nicely, and they all come with loads of information about the items. I do find with some Etsy stores they do just list the item with a really simple description, so you're not really sure what you're buying, but in both of these shops they do go into a lot of detail about what you're buying, so you know exactly what you're going to be getting in the post. So one thing which I absolutely adored about the Mr. Souls shop is the fact that all of the pictures are taken so professionally, and they're all really interesting. So although a lot of the skulls do look similar and a lot of the products look quite similar, they're all taken in front of different backgrounds. So some of the skulls are photographed hanging from trees, some of them have snow in the background, forest in the background, so all the pictures are really interesting, which I think is really important on an Etsy store that do sell a lot of the same kind of thing. 100% will be buying more skulls from both of these shops. I feel like they both offer such different things, although they both kind of specialise in the same theme. I did just quickly want to show you this business card from the Mr. Souls shop. It does have an example of the kind of masks that he makes, so they are very kind of, I feel like they're quite horror themed masks. But they are very interesting and they're very unique. So if you are more into surreal kind of skulls, I feel like it's definitely worth checking it out. I do have another video coming up for an item or a pair of items which I bought off of Etsy, but I felt like there was quite a good theme going on with these skulls in this video. If you've got any comments or questions, please do leave them below, and again, all the information for both of these shops are going to be in the description, including their Facebook and their Instagrams and things like that. I hope you have a lovely week, and I'll see you next time. Bye!